and welcome to my creative castle. If you're new to my channel, hi, my name's May. I love yarn. I love to knit and crochet. Those are my hobbies. Sorry, yarn lovers. Guess what? We're in the kitchen today. So we're not stitching, we're not knitting, we're not crocheting. But don't worry, there's lots of yarn content on my channel. So there's yarn reviews, there's yarn unboxings, there's tutorials, there's all kinds of stuff. Yarn sales. So I'm sure some of you wonder, if you do mostly yarn content, why are you doing a cooking video? Well, I also happen to have been born visually impaired, legally blind, and completely colorblind. And so yes, I have hobbies, but I also feel like it's really important to show people that you can do everyday life with a disability, with a visual impairment. And I live remotely too. I live miles from a bus stop, so I rarely get into town. I rarely have fresh ingredients in the house. We do have to do today. We're actually going to cook a pot roast. Yeah, I have real meat in the house and even some real fresh potatoes. But hey, we got to use up. Now, I know that like 16 million people are considered legally blind according to the World Health Organization, and a lot more people experience deteriorating eyesight all the time. And some of the things that people fear are, how am I going to take care of myself and do everyday things? And so that's why I use my channel to educate about disabilities, visual impairment, everyday living, everyday stuff. So today we have a bottom round roast. It's pretty big, it's over 3 pounds, which does mean a lot of it's not your leanest cut of meat. It's actually a pretty tough cut of meat. And so a lot of people will cook these in the crock pot. And yes, you absolutely can cook them in the crock pot. We're not going to do that today. We're actually going to cook it in the oven because it's so big, over 3 pounds, and because it's such a tough cut of meat, we're probably going to need to cook this thing for over 3 hours. Yeah. So because of that, I do have some potatoes as well. I have over probably 2 pounds, 2 to 2.5 pounds of just some red potatoes. We're going to use that. I've got some carrots we're going to throw in there. You know, little sparks on the vegetables when you live remotely and don't drive. But of course, you feel free to put any other fresh veggies, some parsnips in there if you want, anything else that you want, and you season it however you want. I'm just going to use some plain old onion soup mix. Yeah, it's really that simple. And that onion soup mix is very flavorful. You get a lot of flavor with little to no effort, right? And then of course, if you want to add some additional salt and pepper and garlic powder, you can to that. And then we're going to just use a little bit of olive oil to smear that onto the potatoes and onto our pot roast. We're actually going to roast our roast in this big roasting pan. I like one with some handles that I can really grip onto. As somebody who's visually impaired, I do use other devices in the kitchen. One of them is a talking meat thermometer. I do use that just to make sure that, you know, I make sure that my beef, because that's what we're cooking today, is thoroughly cooked. So we'll let you hear it right now. It's 68 degrees in my house right now. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do, of course, is turn on our oven and wash our potatoes. So I'm going to go ahead and wash the potatoes, and then I'm going to dice those potatoes up into small little bite-sized bits. And I'm going to wash them. You don't need to see that, right? I mean, you know how to wash potatoes. So I'm going to do that. But one thing I do also talk about when it comes to independent living and cooking is accessing our appliances. That's something I talk about with people. I tell them I do put Braille on my flat panel microwave. I have that on a YouTube short. I don't even have a flat panel on my stove. I have a very old stove. So I have like an old-fashioned dial. And I talk about that as somebody who's visually impaired. We actually just drilled holes in it. Let me put you on pause, and I will actually take you over there and give you a brief look at my microwave and stove. So we're not using the microwave today, but this is what it looks like for me, right? We've just got some simple Braille here. Okay, hang on. We'll go look at the stove. Okay, and here's my stove dial. I've talked about it numerous times on here. Like, we literally, sorry, my stove is very old and not very clean right now. At least on the back part of it. I admit I don't clean this part as often as I should. So I've literally got like a hole drilled in the 200 and then in the 300 and in the 400. And I want my stove at 350, which means I need to put two fingers, one on the hole at the 300, one on the 400, and then try to find the middle. It might not be exactly 350, it might be 355, something like that. And then I just hit my start button, which also has some braille on it. Okay, I'm gonna go wash my potatoes. Be back. Okay, so here's my potatoes. I washed them thoroughly. They are red potatoes. I'm not going to peel them. If you want to peel your potatoes, feel free to peel your potatoes. Just make sure, you know, if you're, I don't mind like the skin on red potatoes. To me, it tastes fine. I don't find it too tough. Some russet potatoes can have really tough skin. Your traditional red potatoes usually don't, so I don't mind it. As long as you wash them thoroughly, I think it's perfectly fine to eat the skin on red potatoes roasted. What was I going to say about that? Oh, just, you know, I mean, we're going to cook them in the oven as well at 350 degrees for, 2 to 3 hours. So, in my opinion, anything from the ground, from the earth is going to get, cooked off. So now we are going to measure out some olive oil to mix with our onion soup mix, and I'm going to just do about 2 tablespoons. I do put my finger over the top of that measuring spoon. Obviously I'm still missing. I can feel the oil running around my finger, but at least that helps me a little bit to feel when my oil gets to the top of the spoon. So we have that in there, and then I am going to just open up one of these pouches of onion soup mix and put it in there. And if that's the only seasoning you want to put in there, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to add some salt and pepper and garlic, you do you. That's always what I say about this channel. I'm just going to use my traditional Asian seasoning blend because it's a mix of salt, pepper, garlic, and ginger. And it's just easier for me than trying to measure out individual quantities of salt and pepper and garlic. But of course, you don't even have to measure seasonings. You might be one of those cooks that is just like, you know what? I just want to sprinkle until I think it's good, and that's totally fine. But this is what I'm going to use. If you don't want the ginger in yours, not everybody likes ginger on their potatoes and pot roast. I am half Chinese. I'm kind of used to those Asian seasonings. But, you do what you want to do. So for this particular batch of potatoes, I think I'm just going to put an entire teaspoon on. And you know what? We're going to do the exact same thing to our pot roast. I just want to do it separately to make sure that each gets coated the same. That's why I do with the olive oil pot roast potatoes. This particular pot roast, because it is a tougher, drier cut of meat, I am going to do the exact same thing, including with the olive oil, to really get that nice and moist. So I just pour that onto the potatoes, and as long as you wash your hands, I say it all the time in my videos, there's nothing wrong with using your hands and doing things by feel in the kitchen as long as you have good hygiene and they're clean. So I am just literally going to put these in the pan and then use my hands and swirl everything around in there just to make sure that my my potatoes are just thoroughly coated with this seasoning. Okay, so I think I better wash the oil off of my hands before I remix that one more time. And you know what? You could absolutely mix it all at once. If you want to mix up your seasoning for your oil and your pot roast and your potatoes all at once, you could do that, and you can use other seasonings as well. I just like to make sure that I get about equal portions on my pot roast and equal portions on my potatoes. But you could be somebody that's like, hey, I don't want all of that on the pot roast, or you only want half. So again, we're going to measure out our oil, exact same amounts. And we're going to measure out some more of the seasoning. We could just shake it in there. I mean, we could be wild and adventurous and just shake it on there. But I think we will go ahead and measure, just so that anybody who's really unsure, you know, and that feels about full to me. It doesn't have to be precise. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to use our onion soup mix to season our pot roast. So simple, so easy. I used to cook with a lot of individual spices, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, with having all these containers. But, you know, sometimes it's a little challenging for me. The more sight that I lose, it can be a little more challenging to keep. And yes, I do use Braille labels on my spices and stuff too. But it can be a little more challenging for me to keep all that straight and then measure out each one separately. So it just works so much easier for me to just do some of these spice blends. Now I'm going to use carrots in this as well. But I did wash my pot roast, by the way. You don't have to if you don't want to, but you know what? I do, because it's a fairly lean cut of beef. I'm not even going to trim this off. Yes, some people might trim off some of this fat. I'm actually not. I washed it really good. I want some of that fat to just kind of get into the flavor. I want it to like cook off. There's some good flavor in that fat. If you want to trim some of that fat, by all means do that. But I just really love the flavor of the fat. It makes a really nice gravy right in your pan. So we're just literally going to do the same thing that we did with our potatoes, and we're going to like smear this seasoning rub all over our pot roast. We're going to use our hands again. I did do this over the potatoes so that, you know what, the seasoning falls off. It's totally okay. It's just going to get on the potatoes, and that way we don't waste any. So I don't mind leaving that fat on there because I like the flavor of it, and it's going to make us a nice gravy right in the pan. The combination of the moisture cooking off from the potatoes, as well as the fat and the soup mix right in our pan, we're going to get a lot of flavor, and I love that. So I am going to put carrots in here, but I'm not going to put them in yet because this roast is so big and it's such a tough cut of meat. We are probably realistically going to cook it for like 3 hours, and that seems like it's going to be a little bit too long to cook those carrots. So just keep that in mind. If you're adding different vegetables to this, some squash or some different veggies, not all veggies are going to need as long to cook. Potatoes, you can probably cook those at 350 for 3 hours and they're going to be fine. But I don't think I want to cook my carrots. If you want to add parsnips or something, I don't want to cook them quite that long. So that's something to keep in mind. And I am going to add just a little bit of water to that as well for a couple of reasons. One, because I like it to make its own little bit of gravy. And so I'm just going to take my tablespoon over here and get like maybe 2 tablespoons of water or something. Not a big deal. And I like it to kind of make its own little gravy right there in the pan, along with the onion soup mix and the fat and stuff. I'm just going to pour this little bit of water with my remaining seasoning all around this roast. But also, because we're going to cook it for so long, this could really have a tendency to dry out. And we don't want that, right? We've all had dry pot roast, I'm pretty sure. If you eat meat at all, you've probably had a dry pot roast, right? Now, it's going to be a little bit dry and tough, just the nature of the cut of the meat. But the water in there and covering it, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to get some aluminum foil out. And we are going to cover that. I might have to move the camera for a second. It might be in front of my aluminum foil. Hang on. Okay, well, there you go. You're back on the vertical tripod. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put some heavy duty aluminum foil over the top of this because it's going to cook for so long. And this is going to help trap that moisture in from the oil, from the fat, from the water, and it's going to help it make like a nice little gravy in there. It's going to trap the moisture in there, and it's going to help keep our pot roast from drying out so much, because that's what you want to do. If you're going to cook something like this in the oven for like 3 hours, is you want to keep it from being so tough. So that is my recommendation. We will check this after 1 hour. I doubt that it's going to be done after 1 hour. I doubt that it's going to be done after 2 hours. It probably will take 3 hours. So, okay. Let me go ahead and open up my oven. And we will pop, because it's already preheated and hot, and because I am visually impaired, and I'm wearing short sleeves, the risk of me accidentally bumping the sides of my oven with bare wrist is real. So I know my pan's not hot yet, but I'm going to go ahead and put on my oven mitts just for safety. When in doubt, err on the side of safety, right? So we're going to go ahead and slide that in there. And then we're going to ask our little friend to give it 1 hour. Alexa, set a timer for 1 hour.
Good afternoon, May. 1 hour, starting now.
Okay, so I'll see you in a while.
Boarding button. Double tap to activate.
Okay.
System sound volume set to 0%.
I've been in the oven for over an hour, and I can just tell you that I'm positive it's not even close to being done. But it probably still has at least 1 to 2 more hours to cook. But one thing that we want to do is stir in our carrots and other vegetables that we might want to add. So I will stick my talking thermometer in there for a little bit, just so we can get a gauge of where our roast is at. But I'm going to go ahead and stir these carrots in. So if you have carrots, parsnips, squash, any other kind of veggie that you want to add in that might not need as long to cook as potatoes, it's a great time to do it, to just stir them in. And it's a good idea to go ahead and stir those potatoes anyway. So we'll check our temperature here.
97.2 degrees.
Yeah. 97.2 degrees.
Congratulations, your comment got a heart from @RoboMaritimer.
What is my phone talking about? I don't know what it said. It said something. I have no idea what. Sorry about that. I have no idea. If you don't know yet, ask somebody who's visually impaired. I do use a screen reader. My phone does read stuff out loud. I try to wear my earbuds, but didn't put them in right now. Thought this would be really quick, that it would not interrupt us, but apparently it has something to say. Don't know what. Didn't even hear it. Well, I heard the voice, but couldn't make any sense out of it. So, okay. We are just going to stir these carrots in with our potatoes and let them cook.
98.4.
Yeah, that's not close. So we are going to pull that out, and then we are going to recover. I do want to keep it nice and covered. You want to see what it's looking like so far.
Pause button. Pause.
Okay, this is what we got so far in the pan. Now, the one thing I could have done was I could have browned this pot roast as well before, like in a fry pan, right? In a skillet in some oil. We could have done that, but we didn't, and that's okay. So this is what we got after 1 hour with our potatoes and our carrots. I'm going to go ahead and put this back in the oven, and we will check it in 1 hour.
Pause. Recording button. Double tap to activate.
Okay, well, Our pot roast has been in the oven for about 2 hours. We're going to check the temperature here. 127 degrees. That is not enough for me to eat beef. So we are going to put that back in the oven for a little bit. Probably another, I'll probably check it in 30 to 40 minutes and see, because it is definitely getting closer. And I'm getting hungry, but I know I must be patient. So we'll check on it again in about 40 minutes.
Stop recording button. Double tap to activate.
Well, our last 30-minute timer went off. So this, I think it was actually 40 minutes or so. So this pot roast has been in the oven for about 2 hours and 40 minutes for, I don't remember, I don't know the size of this pot roast, but I couldn't tell you. It's over 3 pounds. I don't think it's 4. I think it's about 3 something. And we're going to go ahead and check the temperature of it, because as somebody who's colorblind and mostly blind, I can't tell if it's pink inside, right? I can't tell if it's pink or not, and I want to make sure. I like my meat on the medium rare side, but you know what? You have to do what you're comfortable with. So I'm good with, 140 temperature on a pot roast. But you know what? We know that E. coli needs to be, cooked up to like 165, I believe, degrees, 165, 170. Now, that's usually only an issue with ground beef for the most part, right? Hamburgers always cooked to like 170, in my opinion. But, cross-contamination can happen anywhere in the processing, right? Anywhere from the meat packing, the butchering, the packaging, in the store. Cross-contamination can happen in your own kitchen with salad greens and green onions and that kind of a thing. So if you're at all concerned, by all means, cook your beef to the temperature that you want. But I'm going to eat this if it's, let's see what it's at. 145. Yeah. I'm going to call that good enough for me to eat. So I'm going to turn my timer off. I'm going to check my potatoes and my carrots, but I cannot imagine that they wouldn't be done at this point. I just can't. Nope. They taste really good. So let me put you on pause. I'll take you over there and you can actually see what we got.
Pause button. Pause.
Okay. Here's our pot roast. Look at that. Does that not look yummy? Here's our potatoes. And this is why I put the little bit of water in there and then let the moisture from the potatoes add to it. And you get a nice gravy right in there in your pan. So you really don't even have to make an additional gravy. Now, of course, you can if you want to either get a gravy packet or take this juice from the pan and drain that into a saucepan. Mix that up with some cornstarch and some water. You're going to get a really nice gravy to add to it if you want more. So I apologize in some of my other cooking videos. I forget to bring you over here. I kind of forget about, sighted people and that you guys like to see things. So I got some cooking videos that not positive. I let you see the full picture or not. But here it is. Thank you so much for watching and joining me today.
Pause button. Pause.
And here is, if you can see it, there is also a visual display on our temperature thermometer, talking thermometer.
Pause. Pause.
And for anybody who wants to see this deliciousness on the plate, that's what it looks like. That's what we got in the pan once we cut into it. And look at all that gravy and juice to put on top of our potatoes, right? I mean, that's all it took was a couple tablespoons of water and onion soup mix to have a delicious onion gravy to go on our potatoes. Alrighty, my friends. Well, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to eat this food and get back to stitching. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye for now.